Hey, what is up? What is going on? This is Gumby, and welcome to another gameplay review. Well, actually, it's an OWL match review via the replay. So, this is stage 4, obviously. As you can see, there's 2-2-2 on each side. No one's playing goats.
Four,
Today, we're
three,
looking at the
two,
LA Gladiators
one.
versus the
Round
NYXL
one.
on
Capture the
Busan.
objective.
So, let's see. If we take a look at what they're rolling with, their tank lines are fairly similar. You've got dive tanks. There's no shields. There's no Winston in this composition. So that means that they want to be aggressive in your face, trying to get a pick off almost immediately. They differ quite much in terms of their supports and the DPS of choice. Excelsior is looking towards a long range spam slash snipe. So this is spam and snipe. So basically your tank line is just going to create as much space as possible, get in the face of the LA Gladiators so that neither DPSs have to worry about getting picked off. On the side of the Gladiators, you've got a very much a run at you composition. This is going to be synchronizing with two tanks for hacks. And then Decay will sometimes flank, but mostly he's going to be going with both of the tanks to just be a battering ram. So frontal DPS. And with a combination of their two supports, they're just going to run at you. And this is the win condition of the LA Gladiators. You get a pick off by essentially moving as a big death ball. Maybe Sure4 is going to flank all the way around, so he's going to go there, over here, maybe up top, this area. Excelsior are going to be, or the DPS of the Excelsior, or on the other hand, is going to play somewhat passive and try to get pickoffs from afar, while their two tanks are in your face. And of course, they benefit also the supports of the Excelsior because they're going to be playing really far or in a very safe place wherein none of the gladiators can get to them. So anyway, from on paper, I would actually favor gladiators just because there's nothing for liberal to spam. It's very difficult for liberal to actually spam anything, and if the gladiators can actually catch say Biolby on rotation, then say Biolby is just dead. Right? So let's see. Typical pokes. Two Hammonds are switching places. Nice pick off by say Biolby. Okay, Libero is trying to go for a spam is very difficult because, well, there's a DM, there's also the fact that they're highly mobile, can play very split, but right now they're not really playing split, so Libero is actually getting value. We've only lost Big Goose, but Big Goose isn't too big of a loss. I hate when that happens. So, what the um, what the gladiators choose to do is rotate all the way from here, all the way around. Now they take spam still from Libero, but this is still fine. I don't think they should have stuck around here, but then their goal was to take out Sabilby over there. Actually, we should have the spectate overlay. There we go. That's a lot better. Don't want to really move the camera, so the goal of this rotation from the LA Gladiators was to go ahead and take out Sabilby right over there. Of course, again, because Gladiators tend to play this as a death ball because, well, it benefits in being a death ball. Libero gets a lot of value from the spam. Oops, it didn't change colors. So Libero spams them. A lot of the Gladiators are low. The grenade is also well timed from Jonak. So this makes this engagement from the Gladiators rather iffy. The Goose is picked off, but that's okay. Don't really mind it too much. Some really clutch play by DK. He teleports all the way here. Jonak doesn't really know that he's there. Drops to the point and takes out Mono, or at least goes on to Mono. Mono dies. Now, it's worth noting that this entire time, CBLB is right here. And from this vantage point, he doesn't really have a good sight line of what's happening on the point. Or at least, yeah, he doesn't really have a good sight line. Because if we look from over here, you can barely see, you can just barely see Shaz, and the rest of the LA Gladiators are just playing. Wait, they're just playing right in this area. Let me just change the color in this area. Makes it really difficult for, say, Gilby to actually snipe anyone. Now, there's a bit of a disconnect because Decay goes for, say, Gilby. It's about to be taken out. The proper play here, I think, for the Gladiators is to have every single one of them just focus the tanks and the supports right over here. Because it's almost impossible for CBLB to do anything about it anyway, if they do it quick enough. Like, they can go around there, then use this gigantic tower thingy as a cover. They can also use the point itself as a cover, because that means that CBLB would then have to rotate all the way up here or over here. Makes him even more vulnerable for the dive tanks of the Gladiators. They can just go up there and meet him. And it'd be easy peasy. It also helps that Libero is also dead, so there you go. Dies. Goose is able to force CBLB onto the point where the rest of the Gladiators are. Since this composition from the NYXL has no teeth, they have no damage, they easily fall down the moment that the DPSs from the Gladiators join up. It's also worth noting that the Gladiators have switched their composition slightly. They've kept the Sombra. So they've kept the Sombra. So Surefour should have EMP, or at least NYXL would think that he would have EMP, but Decay is now on Tracer. This means that it is now a full-on dive composition. Granted, Shaz may not be that well suited, but then again, the Moira Coalescence is really good at taking out the duo of Animo and Libero while they're in the sky, provided that the rest of the Gladiators can cover for Shaz. At this point, the NYXL should switch, right? Because this is a really deadly combination, or composition rather, for CBLB. It's like CBLB will just die before Libero and Animo can get any form of picks, and they can just ignore Meko and Mono. In fact, it's probably dangerous for Meko and Mono to go in, because Surefour is just going to wait for them to dive, get a hack, and then one of the tanks are disabled. It's an easy focus for the rest of them. The Gladiators don't really have a lot of damage, so that means that anything that has a lot of sustain and a lot of tankiness is going to be good. So I would recommend NYXL would switch to Narissa, Roadhog. McCree is good. McCree is good. This is just too vulnerable to dive, so McCree is one choice. You can still stick with what do you call this? A Widowmaker, but your Widowmaker kind of has to be babysat by your front line. So McCree adds another stun, adds another CC against the Gladiators. Actually, the entirety of the Gladiators. Composition, and then your other DPS would be a Mei. The Mei again has another CC and makes it really difficult for one of the flankers to just get in because they has wall. So Mei can just wall off one of the flankers, freeze one, get a pick off, and then go from there. As for the supports, Jonak can actually stay. Actually, they can stay this. But another option is Brig and Anna. So Jonah can definitely stay Anna. But Animo might benefit from being Brig. Another option might be, well, Zen is a little bit sketch. Baptiste might work, but he's very vulnerable to hack and EMP. So yeah, I think the moment that they see this composition from the LA Gladiators, the NYXL should be thinking, oh, we should switch. Like, forget our ults. We need to take back the point, and we need to take back the point with something that works. So that's bunker. If you're the LA Glads, you're just looking to snowball using EMP and the rest of your ults. So getting position. They have not switched NYXL. This is troublesome. Even if they do have ults for it. Mano did switch, but Mano is still going to be in trouble. Because again, who does he dive? Like literally, who does he dive? Who do they dive? They need some form of disable first until before they can dive, or they need to force Shaz or some other person from the Gladiators, NYXL, the Gladiators do not have a mobility. So force no mobility. No mobility. Thing is, the rest of the Gladiators have so much mobility. All of these guys are really mobile. You don't really dive this guy or this guy. Like, God forbid you dive a Hammond. Like how? Only if he's hacked or stunned or slept. Jonak is the only person who can disable anybody, but how consistently can you land a sleep dart on any of these targets? Especially if they're playing so split. Now, if you're Libero, you're looking to spam the Gladiators as a group. Or at least spam or force one of the Gladiators to use their mobility, and they die from there. Thing is, it's really difficult for the current position of the NYXL to dive. That's one. Number two, good luck spamming anyone here because none of them are going to be standing still. Like, this guy is not going to be standing still, not this guy or this guy. In fact, Shaz can just hide underneath. Shaz can just hide underneath the point, and he's safe. Like, if Libero full commits into pressuring Shaz or anyone on the point, like, Surefour just TPs and gets a hack. And that's one. That's either Animo dead or Libero dead or both of them dead, which is really, really bad. If you're the NYXL, how do you win this? You don't. Like, Sabiolbi has to get a 3k somehow, while all of the Gladiators are basically hiding. Especially since he is popping Infrasight. So there's no real way, in my opinion, for NYXL to win this. So the other option, I guess, for the NYXL is to just expend all the ults. Like, expend ults. Oops. Expand ults. And ults. And then pray. Pray that someone from the Gladiators will commit their ults, or that the Gladiators will overcommit their own ults. And that is basically it. That is the only way that they win with this particular composition. It's just too difficult. I think they should switch. They should have switched. So they're now stuck in that corridor. Super dead. They nano boost. They nano boost Mono, but they just kite him. So who cares? CBLB is now on McCree, but in my position, in my opinion, not position. Well, position I guess works as well. This is a little bit too late, or at least not going to be enough. I think Mono should have been on Orisa at this point. Like, they should have switched. Maybe okay, Meko. There's an argument to be made for Meko staying Diva because Diva and Orisa are pretty good, but this is just rough for CBLB. And for Anamo. But then again, Anamo has Valk, so maybe that's why you're using that. It's gonna be rough for CBLB because, like, well, for one, the Gladiators are already snowballing. So these guys are just snowballing. Like, they have a lot of ults. The Excelsior have 2 and they're not that high impact. In fact, they can just disable Meko and just negate that via hack. And then there's just so many things for CBLB to just CC. Like, you can argue that Libero on Mei can maybe CC or help CC people on the side of Gladiators, but in my opinion, it's just too much. It's just too much. Like, the only way that the Gladiators lose this is if they overcommit. Like, they overextend. Like, for example, if the Excelsior are going for this path, they're trying to push on to the point through here, like, Hydration would have to overcommit, like, way push, alone, without any form of support from the rest of the Gladiators. And that is the only way that they lose this. Apart from that, this is also a very risky rotation coming from the Excelsior, mainly because there's so many things that can just boop you away. So Hammond can boop you away onto off the map. Same with Diva. In fact, Diva can maybe force you to, like, hide, which will give Hydration or Big Goose an opportunity to boop you off. It's also a really prime target for an EMP, which they might have guessed is there. I mean, Shurfar is really close. So yeah, this is a bit sketch. I would have rather have them go through main and slowly inch their way towards the point. They still have plenty of time anyway. Like, 50% is not too bad. But they should fight this as a losing fight. Like, there's no way that they just win, because, again, Gladiators are just snowballing at this point. So anyway. They heavily commit, but they never go beyond. Like, notice that the Gladiators never go beyond this point. The moment that Hydration goes for the ult, he just backs off. Doesn't care about going or following up. Surefour should be safe, he should be playing safe. Hacks the Mei, but he couldn't really prevent the ice wall from going up. I guess that was the plan from the LA Glads, but not so. They still isolate Mono via their own team's wall, which is unfortunate. Okay, again, wait. The Gladiators are going into this, but that's fine. Hydration is going deep, but that's fine because the rest of his team is going deep. Like, nearly every single Gladiator is already here. Plus, they already have a hack on Libero again, so that means that there's no wall. So the danger of someone from the Gladiators getting trapped in this fight is very low. Plus, they have other ults that can help them, or bail them out of this particularly bad situation. They try to kill Libero, but he's being pocketed really hard. If full commit into this, with a plan, I guess, of just baiting out more ultimates from Excelsior. If they get kills, that's great. Kite the May. Nano boost is over, so they just need to get better positions. Reset. Notice that the Tracer and the Sombra are hanging far back. It's almost as though they're just waiting for the two dive tanks to commit into something and then use all of their mobility to engage. Just overwhelming force. Because really, they don't really have a lot of damage. And yeah, I mean, I think Excelsior should have switched much earlier to something that would make this composition from the Gladiators incredibly difficult to play. Something like a McCree, May, Orisa, Hog. They can probably keep their current supports, and I think this would have been a different story. Gladiators would have had to switch. Because they would just continuously take point, right? Like if you have Orisa, Hog, so you have a bunker, you just continuously move towards the point. Let's pretend that the stairs are over here. Move towards the point, shield. It's really impossible for them to just flank. And then you have enough pick-off potential on your own, even on your front line, to make it incredibly difficult for any dive from the LA Gladiators from working. So this is the value of just swapping and learning multiple compositions, because this will happen especially in 2-2-2 block. Your opponent will play a certain composition, you will have to counter swap, and then they will counter swap, and over and over and over again until, you know, they get to a certain composition that's really difficult to just counter swap with, especially with the time constraints. So Excelsior are going for a similar composition with the Gladiators, except they have a monkey, or a Winston rather. So they have a Winston instead of a ball, so that means that they value the isolation created by the shield as well as the primal rage. So shield, or bubble, whatever you want to call it, primal rage, for additional survivability. And then supports are, well, it's still a Lucio, but you have an Ana. So the Ana brings with her the ability to disable. So you've got sleep. You also have the ability to anti-nade or anti-heal. And to a certain degree you have damage boost. So it's pretty straightforward. You're waiting for your tanks to initiate. You go and scout with a Sombra. So scout Sombra, scout / hack, dive with tanks. Then easy win. Again, it's overwhelming offensive power in front, so that the rest of the LA Gladiators cannot possibly go all the way to the back. On the side of the Gladiators, it's a similar... wait, no. Not really. So how do you win with the Gladiators composition? What is the theory behind this? So, hydration is bait. This is bait. You're the bait / distraction / bullet sponge, ability sponge for the Gladiators, so that Decay can go for a flank, maybe get a pick off on the exact same target you're focusing, or on the back line. So Decay is going to go back line. Backline slash follow up. Surefour is just going to snipe. Be obvious. Void is going to be your main line or your main frontline guy. Like he's just going to stay around the point, fairly close to Shaz and Big Goose. So he's going to peel for them, protect them, and then you try to go for a hook, especially on the mobile targets of the Excelsior. So I guess they were expecting precisely what Excelsior are currently playing, just a highly mobile, perhaps very vulnerable to any form of CC composition. Big Goose went for this because again they're expecting flankers. So a stun from Brig is big. I was trying to say that, but whatever. Shaz, of course, Ana is just really good, especially if the enemy team might not be running a shield or a bubble. Fortunately for them, they do have mono. So let's see how this pans out for the NYXL.
Boosters engaged.
So Libero is scouting, sees that the Gladiators are over there. The drum, well, smaller drum. We call it small drum, whatever. So, if you're Libero, you're looking to go for a hack. I mean, upon scouting this, upon scouting the fact that this is the composition that the Gladiators are looking for or using, they're looking for a hack on the Hammond, on hydration. Why? He is the bullet sponge. He's supposed to survive long enough so that the rest of your team gets distracted. But if you can eliminate him almost immediately, then where is the pickoff potential? How will the Gladiators keep Surefour safe? And then after that, you can just full on focus Void. And mind you, the Gladiators don't have a way of eating the Bionade from Jonak. So Bionade is really value. What the? So right now they're just dancing. Libero is going for a long flank. Likely he's going after Surefour, which is a really rough proposition considering that number one, he's not exactly diveable. You can't dive Surefour. He's really far away, like if we observe where the NYXL are, there's no real way for them to dive this guy. It's impossible. They're really far away. So, what is the purpose of hacking or so if you hack um Surefour, then okay, he won't be able to get away. But at the same time, what does that actually do? He can still scope in and try to get a snipe. And then what Big Goose can do is just turn around and armor pack Surefour, and he's relatively safe after that. In fact, maybe Surefour can even grapple towards Big Goose. And then that's that. That's that for the aggression of Libero. So if you're Libero, and of course you already scouted that they have a Hammond, you're basically actively going to look for a hack on either the Hammond. So you're going to look for a hack on him instead. You're following him, you're stalking this Hammond, waiting for him to try and engage your team. You can also go for a hack on Surefour. Wait, no, not Surefour, Decay. Because Decay is just looking to follow up on whatever hydration is going to be aggressive on. Another option is maybe Void, but it's a very risky proposition, especially if your Anna is not yet ready to anti-nade. So I think the composition is okay, but the execution is rather questionable because he uncloaks, gets a hack on Surefour, but Surefour is like within range of Big Goose, so he's completely fine. He's not gonna die. They do get a pick off on, we call this hydration, but then hydration is kind of sort of expendable, especially if you're able to trade, because the durability of the gladiators is much greater, so this is tankier than dive than this. Plus, it's also very difficult for the Excelsior to get any pickoffs without, say, all four of these guys focusing them down. While on the Gladiators, you just need Hydration and Decay to focus one of the supports, or you have Surefour to just click some heads, like just snipe from afar. Don't think they need to switch this time, they just need to execute this properly. The NYXL. So right now, at least they have Jonak's Nano Boost. What they can go for is a really aggressive dive. So, um, Libero can go and scout. Again, scout right around here. Well, it's a bit dangerous because Big Goose might be checking for Sombra, so you can just stalk this Hammond. Try to go for a hack. We just move this a little bit so that every single one of the NYXL are present. You don't really care about what Decay and Surefour are doing because they don't really have sightlines of this. This is a really good opportunity for the NYXL to dive, get a pick off. So what they can try and do is the Hammond is stalked by Libero, that he gets hacked. The rest of the Excelsior fully commit and kill the Hammond, then start chasing for kills. They should still be safe, especially in this area, because there's no sightlines for the Widowmaker. Or at least the Widowmaker doesn't really have very good sightlines, especially if Widowmaker is playing right over there. Anyway, let's see how this unfolds. So, Libero is scouting, which is typical. NYXL are getting in position. But I don't agree with where Libero is positioning himself right now, because really, what you should do is take out the tanks. This is against almost any composition that has a sniper, because a sniper needs space. Sniper, sniper equals space requirement. Space requirement. No matter how good your sniper is, I can't spell requirement, but no matter how good your sniper is, you still need to create a lot of space so that they'll be safe. Otherwise, they'll just be dove. And how do you do that? You use your tanks. So if the tanks are gone, how do they create space for the sniper? So I think Libero should again try to go for a hack on either of these two. The Excelsior fully commit, with Mono of course isolating one of them with a bubble. And then after that you reset and kill some more. So Libero is trying to go for a hack on the Brig. This is a really tough target. Even if they do take him down. Okay, so they got a little bit lucky there, I think. Oops, that's not enough. It's a really tough target because if say what do you call this? If say Void actually got a hook, a decent hook, before they could engage, like what's your push? How do you kill a Brig? So I think Gladiators messed up here by being too spread out, and by Hydration not really taking advantage of the fact that he's not really being harassed. So it's the reason why it went the way it did. There's also the fact that they nano boosted him. So yeah, that's really rough for the Gladiators. They couldn't really get a pick off or bully the front line of the Excelsior to prevent that jump from ever happening. So again, the Tracer and Sombra combo are trying to number one scout. This is them scouting the position of the LA Glads, but the question mark here is why are the Excelsior super passive? This makes no sense because the moment that you see, oh, they're trying to go for this direction again, all right, like they're going here, okay, so that means that we can cut them off. So this Sombra goes here. The problem is that CBLB currently is being focused down, but the way that you can go about this in response is, okay, you took down CBLB, whatever, we'll just dive your backline, or we'll just trap both of you here in this area. There's no way that you can escape. That's one way. Especially since I think the rest of the LA Gladiators are just spawning or just moving. Yeah, they're just moving to this position. So it's going to be very easy for them to just dive a 5v4. Yes, there's going to be a Tracer and a Hammond, but the Hammond and Tracer don't really represent that much damage. Unless, of course, they can go to the backline of the NYXL, but then again, that's why you have Onimo on Lucio. So Jonak should still be safe. Yeah, they played this too reactively, too passively. They should have gone for the 5v4, accepted the fact that, yeah, Sabielbe's probably going to die, but at least we trade a little bit more, are a little bit better than the LA Glads by going into their back line. So this is a lost fight, I think. Especially since they don't really have a lot of damage with them. Sombra doesn't really represent a lot of damage. Bomb goes out, doesn't really do anything. The EMP did not disable the one person that should have been disabled, which is unfortunate. Ults are popped, but again, like the Gladiators are already ahead in terms of pickoffs. Like with a Tracer Sombra, you really need to kill the enemy team or like get a man or two-man advantage before they can inflict significant damage to you. Like the burst potential should be there. As far as sustained DPS, it's not that great. That's why you need to end fights really quick. NYXL switch to, well, they basically mirror But I think this is again too late of a switch. If they wanted to do this, they should have gone for it much earlier. Because now they don't really have the position. Well, okay, you don't really care much about the position to be fair, but you don't have the ults. Gladiators do. Secondly, more to the problem is the fact that they're very very passive. Like they're not playing this composition aggressively as it should be. Like burst potential, yes, there's a lot of burst, but that can only happen if you're aggressive, and they are being really reactive, and that's not good. Maybe if this composition from the gladiators were something like a bunker, maybe you can be a bit more reactive, but they're not running that. Therefore, Excelsior are going to take another loss, and the LA Gladiators will look incredibly dominant.
Nerf this!
Ults are used, but who cares?
I am unstoppable! Game on!
At this point, Gladiators are already snowballing, so it's gonna be a tad difficult for the NYXL to do anything. And that was it. That is the game 1 between LAG versus NYXL. If you like this video, please do leave a like, subscribe. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments. But for now, I'm gonna take a break. When we come back, we go over other VODs or replays from Stage 4's first week. Be right back.